Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today is actually our first motherboard review in the new studio-y, office-y, typey thingy-bobby. And today we're going to be taking a look at the X99 Gaming Pro. Now this is the first of the, we'll call it the new generation of X99 boards from MSI. Now this does out the box support Broadwell-e, which we are hoping will be coming in the not too distant future, bringing up to 10 core extreme overclockable processors to the market. Now the old boards, yes, you will be able to update the BIOS, and then that will allow you to use your older boards if you've got X99 2011-3 boards, which is basically 2011-3 is just basically the boards with the X99 socket. Now the new changes, you might be wondering, you'll be thinking to yourself, what's going on? What's going on? Well, to be honest with you, when Z170 came out, the X99 boards got left behind because a lot of them didn't have M.2 drives on them, and it was all a bit of a mishmash. So essentially, this new kind of flurry of new boards is kind of bringing the X99 boards up to spec with the Z170 boards, and I will show you around and about the board anyway. But this new MSI one is actually kind of special because what they've done is, I mean, MSI have been playing around with RGBs for a couple of generations, and when they first started with the original Godlike, which had all this red stuff on it with RGBs, to be honest with you, it just didn't work. Now I have actually had a play and tested this, and I'm filming the video all, you know, kind of upside down and back to front. But they really have got it dialed with this one. So really what I should do is bring you in and give you a look around the board itself, because then I can show you all of the features that you can see are kind of like getting coming through to the X99 stuff from Z170, as I was trying to quite poorly explain previously. Okay, so here we go. So we've got the board, and I've got it on a stand, and that's literally so that I can show you around and about, but also I can bring it in to give you a good look as well. I may pick it up if I need to, because I do want to make it kind of fluid, but we can get the best of our looks from this angle that we've got here now. So straight off the bat, you can see that we've got all of the carbony effect on the MOSFET area, down here on the audio, on the actual main heatsink itself, and up here, and that's where your Carbon Pro kind of comes in from. Or sorry, Gaming Pro Carbon comes in from. But there are a lot of lights on this as well, and I will show you shortly afterwards. There are lights up here, underneath this heatsink here, and to be fair, if you have a look, you can see that there are little wires around and about anyway, including up here. You can see there's a little wire in there. It's going to be quite difficult to get that into the camera, that's smashing the tripod, but there are little LEDs and wires all over the place. Another one down there. Now we do have the reinforced Pci Express here, and you can see that we've got 4. With the 4, it's not really set out in a way that you can have quad SLI, but you've kind of got the choice. Anyway, I think most of us would end up using that one, and that one, and going for triple. But also we do have some of the support, as you can see down from this angle, down on the DRAM as well. So DRAM is obviously quad. Now when people do ask about quad and quad kits and the like, it's pretty much just more sticks. Intel do like to say that if you're going to fill them out, then you can, it's better to buy them all at once, so they're all from the same batch, because sometimes throughout memory history you might buy a kit 3 months later and it's got completely different memory chips inside it. But that's diverting away from the cause. The other thing you have to go careful with, and this is something that does seem to get forgotten by a lot of people, is you need to make sure that you follow these little guides and put the memory in the right places, because I do quite often see them in the wrong ones, or with some boards and BIOSes you can end up getting problems. If you put them in the wrong ones, the board won't actually start. Anyway, so let's bounce around. We've got a vertical USB 3 here. You've got a horizontal one here. You've also got a horizontal USB C-type as well for when the cases finally catch up. While I've got it in my hands, you can also see there that you've got your SATAs and a U.2 down the bottom. First of the MSI boards that I've seen has finally got a U.2. You've also got 2 more SATAs down here, and you've got a SATA Express at the bottom. Please, someone tell me if you can actually find me a Pci Express device anywhere, because I've not been able to find one. We will start with some fans and point out the fans and round and about the board. You've got CPU fan up here, pump fan 1 up here, and then we've got system fan 1 up here. Coming down the side of the board, I'm not seeing, there's a system fan 2 there. I'm literally looking with you. And when we come along the bottom, there's a system fan down here as well. I don't think we've got one nestled underneath the DRAM area anywhere, and I don't think we've got any anywhere else. So there are your fan headers. So we've got one there, one there. We've got 2 at the top, but this is a pump fan as well, which is something that's been kind of borrowed from another brand. But the pump fan basically means if you've got an AIO that has got a 3 or a 4 pin output, you can plug it into this, and it's got slightly better amperage on it. Another very important thing for the X99 is the inclusion of the M.2 port. Very few of them ended up having them with the initial batch, because it was kind of a new tech back then, but we do have one now. Obviously the amount of lanes that you end up having is all going to depend on your the CPU and how many, but to be honest with you, as long as you're not planning on running 4 quad SLI and using this, you shouldn't really be running into too many issues. The little button down here is actually a dial that you can twist, and it's an auto overclock button. One thing I will say though is in testing, all boards, but this one as well, do generally have set the voltage a little bit too high. So if you are an utter beginner, then this may be a really good place to start, or for quick boosts. But I would say for the longevity of your system, running 24/7 clocks, and if you're an actual enthusiast, then you should really be getting into the BIOS and learning your system. And I will be making a guide on overclocking in the not too distant future. Something else that is kind of nice to see is that we do have 2 USB 2s in the bottom. May not seem like too much of an issue only having 2, you know, surely one's enough. But with a lot of systems now where you have a connector for your AIO, and some have connectors for power supplies, there is still the need for internal USBs to be able to control and link up that, so that you can have pretty much everything running on your system and be able to view everything on your system as in your OS like Windows 10, rather than having to look for things manually or install special bits of software, or actually having to look on the things themselves. So these things do help with linking everything up. We do have a Pci Poster up here at the top, so if you do run into any problems, then this will normally freeze, maybe not continuously, but it may freeze before it starts a boot loop again. And if it does, all you've got to do is look in the manual for the board itself, and there will be a list to tell you what the error code means, and it may help you work out what the problem may be. Could be a BIOS setting that you've changed or something like that. But anyway, so the other thing that we really need to do is have a look at the power phases around the CPU area, and you can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chokes there in total. Caps are actually on both sides. You've also got another choke at the top here, and you can see that the caps are on both sides. But it's a fairly meaty power delivery area, and MSI don't really scrimp too much when it comes on to their chokes and stuff. And as you can see here, I would whiz this off so that we can have a look at the actual MOSFETs underneath. But I know that this sample's got to go off to another media, so it wouldn't be fair for me to start ripping stuff off altogether. But while I have got it in my hand again, one thing that I can show you, which I will show you in the video as well, as you can see here, that the heatsink is actually sandwiched, and there is a band of acrylic running all the way through it, and that does light up very Tron-esque. So when we do turn the lights on, the band comes outside, and it does give a nice glow around here, but you do get that band, and it's most visible from the top when we look in here. I was trying to do it and get the light, there we go. It is most visible from the top up around this area above your graphics card, but yeah, so that's well worth a look. When we nip around to the back, this will be the final bit. You can see that we've got the connections around the back here. We've got the digital audio here. You've got USB C type here, and so we've got USB 3.1, and we've got an A and a C. USB 2, USB 2. These are USB 3s. BIOS clear, and this is your gigabit Ethernet. There's loads of software in the on the driver CD as well for overclocking, to do with your audio and the gaming as well. It's well worth a look. Have a read into it. You don't really want me to be talking any more about it though, do you? I think we can, before we nip off to have a look at the LEDs, is just agree that this is an immensely pretty MSI X99 board. Okay, so here's the MSI gaming app, and we've got it on the LED button. I can show you it just quickly. So you've got down here, you can just hit LED and it brings you into this. On the left hand side, we've got all LED or each LED. On each LED, you can set the colours for each zone independently. You have the motherboard logo section, which is what we will call our chipset. You've got the MOSFET area, which is the area to the left with the logo and the area above the CPU. You've got the motherboard audio section, which is actually quite small. All of this I'll show you in a second anyway. You've got the motherboard PCI Express, where there are some very small faint lights at the end of the PCI Express connectors. And then you've got the extend LED, and this is where the RGB header is, so that if you want to control an external set of RGB separately, you can do that through this. For now, we're going to show you all LED. Now down here, essentially what we do have is a selection of animations. You have breathing, flashing, double flashing, mark and meteor, and these are all, or meteor's not, sorry. So these are also that you've got options where you can set the animation of the LEDs to whatever colour that you would like. But then you do have some other ones like rainbow, for example, and lightning, where you can't change the LED colours, but I will show you those now. Okay, so this is a look at the test system. I have changed the graphics card just so that this isn't a glaring great big green LED, because we normally use the 980. So the different zones that I spoke to you about before, the MOSFET is this area up here and this one over here. The motherboard LED is basically the chipset here, and you have the light up section in the middle, but it's also got that really nice effect around the outside. We've almost got like a Tron, T-R-O-N, Tron trail. Then you've also got the PCI Express. You can see on the end of my finger it starts to light up, and they are very faint, but it does help give an even glow around the chipset area. And then you do have the option to do the RGB connector at the bottom. I've not got one of those connected. So what we do have is the colours that we can set to, and if we go to no animation, I'm just going to bring it down to green just to show you how quickly you can make it match your system. Now green is obviously great because there's not that many green boards about, if any at all at the moment, and it does tie in with the GeForce logo really nicely. Obviously we had it on red before for all of you AMD people out there, but the green is just something that, there you go, you can just change the look of your board instantly and suddenly you're on a 1080 theme. One thing we can also do as well, with a very quick flick, you can just change it and then all of a sudden you've got a blue rig, could go with your water cooling or something like that. Your girlfriend decides she wants to play one evening, so you can simply make it kind of a pinky purpley kind of colour. It's quite a difficult colour for RGB. The other difficult colour for RGB, which is the one that I'm just going to show you now, is white. And this is this board's version of white. It is very close to it. It's like a very light pastel blue is, for want of a better term, the best I can explain it. It does show up most down the side here. But what we need to remember is with the white, it's actually got all of the colours on all at once. So the other thing that we can do, for argument's sake, this is Lightning. You can't change the colours on this, but this is its version of Lightning, and it does go absolutely crackers. It's more like a Prodigy concert or something like that than anything else. And it's red and white flashing between. You've got a rainbow that you can set it to, where it cycles through loads of different colours. This is Meteor. So it does give you a kind of a good idea. I actually do really like the Lightning. I'm not sure how long I could game with it like that, but I think it does have a pretty cool effect. So you can obviously set these up yourself. You can obviously set all the different zones, different colours if you want to highlight different parts of your build it's totally up to you. And don't forget, the most important thing as well is they finally do have the RGB header on the bottom so that you can set this up to display an external set of lights as well, which is brilliant that they finally got there. So we are back, and essentially we have some results here to talk about, but we've also, and I do have to keep some notes because I can't remember everything off the top of my head and I don't write scripts. But most important thing is click the link or the card or whatever you want to click on to go and have a look on the Overclocked 3D website, where you can see these results and more results, gaming results, other benchmarks that we've done, because we've just started doing Geekbench and Passmark amongst some others, getting ready for broadwell-e coming in later. So go and take a look at that. It's always worth a look, and it also gives you a chance to have a look, have a read as well, to see, make sure that I've kind of got my written thoughts out better than I have my video thoughts. But the most important thing is Pci Mark 8. One thing that I will say with Pci Mark 8 is it actually got launched after our initial batch of X99 results. So it's kind of one of our newer ones. But when you look at the X99 results, it's actually a good indicator of how stable the BIOS is. Now, you may think stability and BIOS may mean overclocking, but it's really not. If you have a bad BIOS, it really affects your stock scores. And we've started to notice that the Pci Mark 8 ones is really a fairly good indicator on where things have gone with it. So the fact is, at the top of our Pci Mark 8 list is brilliant, and what you can see is you've got the X99 Pro Gaming at the top, and then the only ones above it are overclock results, which is exactly where we'd expect it to be. Moving swiftly on to Cinebench, and this is the Cinebench R15, which is the most recent one. One thing that you can see here is there are actually a few above. The overclock result didn't do that great here. You can see now with the Rampage was just, it was a higher CPU clock, memory was running higher, cache was running higher as well. It was just a higher overclock overall. So the fact that the Rampage was at the top of that graph was not, it's not unexpected. The 5960X overclock was on the top, was actually on one of the lower end boards, but we'll just go past that for now. So with the Pro Gaming, essentially, and this is where we need to talk about the overclock, because obviously you're going to want to know about overclocking if you're going to have one of these. We tested it with the 5960X, as I said at the start. And what we did was we popped the 3000 megahertz memory in, because you'd be amazed how many boards can't even XMP 3000 megahertz. So we got 3000 megahertz running fine, XMP'd fine, it was lovely. And then we moved our multiplier up. Now we ended up benching it just below 4.4 gigahertz, or something like 4.39 something that we ended up benching at. If we'd got another multiplier notch up, it would have taken us just over the 4.5 gigahertz mark. And I couldn't get it stable at that without ridiculous volts. I didn't want to push the volts too far to try and rectify it. Because generally with the CPU that we've got in here, I can get it running at about 4.5, below 1.3 volts, and a good chunk below 1.3 volts as well. Obviously, all CPUs are different, so you do have to consider the silicon lottery. Yours will be, and more than likely will be, very different to mine. But that's what I need on this CPU, because we've tested all the boards on the same one. So with this, it was just a multiplier notch before. I didn't want to spend ages and ages like searching with trying to go with base clocks and making things completely complicated, because then it would have meant different memory, and we were trying to keep the differences between the board quite stark. You know, if you're at home, you're not going to have 3 or 4 different memory sticks or batches of sticks that you can try like I have. So we tried to keep it in, in a nice kind of fun way. But one thing that you can see is there's still some other overclock results in this graph as well. So it is another very good, strong indicator. It may not be at the top, but to be honest with you, considering the price and the fact it is a relatively new board with a relatively new BIOS as well, I wouldn't have expected it to have been either. When we go on to Sandra, this is pretty much the graph that kind of explains everything. Now this is an arithmetic benchmark, so it's basically just all CPU calculation based, and you can see here that the two that we've got at the top were the two better overclockers. And then as you come down, you've got the overclocking for the program common, which is in 3rd place. And then in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th place, you've got the stock result. But it's also in front of a lot of other stock results as well. To put it into context, the stock result on the Pro Gaming Carbon is exactly the same as the stock result on is exactly the same setup as the Rampage 5 Extreme with the 2800 megahertz, because 2800 megahertz is our stock test now. So the fact that it's above the Rampage at that shows you that in this benchmark at least, that the Pro Gaming Carbon actually did outbench the Rampage Extreme. Now, we could say, I'm just going to move the glass now, we could say about, comparing the Rampage Extreme. The Rampage Extreme is obviously a much more expensive board with much more hearty overclocking, and I did review that really early on. But to be honest with you, with this, one of the things I am most happy about is that MSI does seem to have made some big strides forward with their BIOS. Now, X99 is obviously, we're into the conclusion now, by the way, just to let you know. X99 have made, MSI have made some big strides forwards with their X99 BIOSes. Now, one thing I will say is that they've had a fair bit of time to work on this. X99 isn't brand new, so that's fair enough. But it's nice to see them coming to market with a product that does feel ready. So they definitely get some thumbs up from me for that. It's been nice to review and not have any headaches. Really, I would say for the Gaming Pro Carbon, the most important thing about it is the aesthetics. We've now finally got to the point where we've got a nice kind of monochrome, understated looking board. It's black, little bits of silver on it. You've got the support around the memory and the support around the Pci Express is your kind of little bits of silver. And then everything else to do with colouring is to do with the RGBs on the board. Now you've got a splattering of RGBs all the way around the board that I've showed you, and you can control those independently with the software, or you can just have them all on one colour with a click of a button, which is nice and easy to run. But obviously you've got the external RGB now, which is brilliant. They didn't have that before, and like for argument's sake, when their initial RGB board came out, which is the Godlike, it was red and then you had RGBs on it. I mean, yes, okay, it was one of those ones where you could have said, you can set them to whatever you like, but they kind of limited it by having it with that red. So going with the monochrome, which is, we're just going to call it black and grey, when you go with the black and grey, it means you can run it with any colour that you like. So I showed you, you can have it blue, match your water cooling, green, match your NVIDIA card, red, match your Radeon card if you're lucky enough to have one. So there's a lot of customising options with it like that, which is brilliant. The external header is definitely a big step in the right direction, because then that means you've got the option of being able to spec your case the same way. The inside the box, they come with those extensions. That might seem like a small thing, but that is then going to mean that you can have the extension at the top and at the front of your case if you wanted. So you can just buy your RGB kit. You can either get a cheap one from Amazon, or I always end up going with the cable mod ones because the quality is brilliant. And then you can, and also with cable mod, they do foam attached ones, so you can stick them anywhere, or they do magnetic ones as well now. But anyway, so you could have that at the top and at the front of your case and still have it controlled by your motherboard, so that's brilliant. There's a lot of connectivity options. You've got the USB Type-C at the back, and you've, 3.1 and all that kind of stuff, but you've got the C and the A connector on the back, which is brilliant. So you've got the little reversible one that you can't get round the wrong way, and then you've got the normal kind of old USB one where you always put it in, it doesn't fit, you turn it round, it doesn't fit, you turn it back the first way and it goes in straight away. Yeah, well, you've got one of those as well. So you've got those connectivity options on the back. You've got the audio, which has always been one of the kind of sticking points. The audio on the MSI boards is definitely getting better. It's not up there with some of the best audio that I've ever heard on motherboards, but it's definitely better than some of the other kind of basic ones and real basic sound cards, yes. But if you're looking at the audio and thinking, do I not need a sound card anymore? If you like quality audio and you've got yourself some really nice headphones and you like listening to music, or you're really picky about your games, then you might find that you may still need a sound card. But for those of you out there that have always used motherboard audio, it is going to at least blow your mind. So there's a good bit of balance there. And really, to be honest with you, if you are one of the people that will fixate about audio and frequency response and all those kinds of little niggly things, then you don't really need to be worrying about motherboard audio anyway, do you? But you've got it there, you've got the options, you've also got the lots and lots of other stuff. Do you know what I mean? The one thing that I would say is the little dial for the CPU overclocking. Yes, it does have it, and it's very easy to use, but I have noticed that, as with all brands, it does tend to have the volts a little bit higher than is really needed. And I can't stress enough that if you're going to go down the route of overclocking, you are much better off with trying to learn it yourself and getting the volts dialed in properly and learning how to do it manually rather than letting your system overvolt it wildly for you. So the award, you're wondering what award? Well, the award in the end that we decided to give it was the OC3D Aesthetics Award. And yes, it is one of our new ones, but it kind of does work out. I personally was go as far as to say this is the prettiest MSI board I've ever had my hands on. Now, I've obviously had other boards like the titanium and stuff in the past that we can just pull off the shelf and you can have a look at. And this was a very pretty board. It was a very brave board as well. But this kind of brings everything into a very accessible point for everyone, whereas the colour will match whatever system that you really want to put it into. The black and the greys really do work. There's no stupid other colours or any accents or anything on there to spoil matters. You're either going to love or hate the carbon. I'm probably not a fan of the fact that they put carbon on the chipset bit because it kind of blurs the logo a little bit. But Aesthetic Award, it did really well, and it's been lovely to be able to get my hands on one of these nice and early as well. It's certainly going to be interesting to see what it performs like, maybe later with 10 cores pumping through it. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the MSI Pro Gaming Carbon. It's a real mouthful, this one. I can never remember. Let's have a look. Right, let's read off the board. MSI Gaming Pro Carbon. I'll get it the right way around. See, we're all human. I got all the words in there, but they were just the wrong way around. Anyway, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.